So if you go into the course portal, you'll see under Star Map, you'll see this, the 72 Stargates calculator. And again, we've been using astrology in the way in which we had the access to, which was using a two-dimensional map. And of course, that's still valid and also in the computer. But I really wanted to push the boundaries of this because I perceive in my own inner world, I perceive the stars as this sphere, as a three-dimensional experience. And of course, as you go out at night and you look at the stars, you'll start to see that perception that it is this dome that you're in, that you're surrounded by the stars and the planets. And so this really gives you a great orientation because most of astrology, or you could say all of astrology up until this point, focuses solely on this tiny strip, this band, which we call the zodiac. But look in comparison to the rest of the stars and the rest of the sphere. So this is where we can start to see how, when I wrote in the Lost Octave about the decans of astrology, the decans were the Egyptian way of recognizing the other constellations. And that's where we get the star lore from and the stories of the stars. But of course, now with this, I also calibrated that decans means 10 degrees. And that's how the ancient Egyptians used to use their calendar, as 36 decans at 10 degrees each gives us 360 degrees. Well, of course, with true constellational astrology now, because everything is matched to the size of the stars. So it's no longer sort of a generic 30 degrees per zodiac sign or 10 degrees per star. It's actually all calibrated to the exact degrees of each star constellation. So therefore, it brings it into astronomy and the most accurate map by degrees. So what I love about this is that we can actually move this all around, and you can actually zoom in and zoom out of this, and you can really start to see how all of this is connected. So as you hover over these orbs, you'll start to see that they are the planets and their movements. And you'll see above all of the stargates and how this whole grid system works. And so you can actually see that we are actually right about here in the great year. So this is where humanity is right now, this line through here. And it's really great because you get to see what is the age of Aquarius, what is the age of Pisces, how does all of this work, what are the mechanics to all of this? And you can see that above where we are in the age of Pisces, we have Pegasus, the horse that's actually upside down in the stars here. And then below where we are as humanity, we see here the tail of Cetus, which is the sea monster. And you get to see the enormous size of the different star constellations. And look how huge Pisces is. And this is where we have the various size of degrees within true constellational. Because if we move over to Aries, you'll see something really interesting. There doesn't seem to be anything in this part of the zodiac. Well, if you look just above here, where it says 17 to 51, this line is the constellation of Aries. Well, that's not even actually in the band of the zodiac. Now, how interesting is that? And so when people speak about that, in order for the sign to be part of the zodiac, the sun has to move through the constellation. Well, we know that's not true because that would mean that Aries isn't actually part of the zodiac at all. So I had to figure all of this out and to understand how to qualify the zodiac and what does it truly mean. And it is a band. it is a width, and it's not that the sun has to go through the constellation as long as the sun goes through a particular area of the band. So you can really play around with all of this and see it goes all the way down into the southern hemisphere here. And you can see all of the stars in the southern hemisphere. And you can rotate this all the way up and see all of the stars in the northern hemisphere. And so this is really amazing that you get to play with the stars. And of course, where is Earth? Well, Earth is inside this sphere. So Earth would be an orb inside this orb. And of course, we're not technically surrounded by an orb of stars. Of course, space is so vast, it's just a huge space. But in order to display how the stars are connected to us, we can place it on a globe like this. And so as you spin this around, you'll see things like the galactic center that I've positioned here. And this line that runs through is the Milky Way. And so you can see why we have a galactic center that's connected. And you can follow it all the way around. And you can see that it comes up on the other side exactly through Orion's hand. So this is how we can start to navigate, and why that I said that it's important that we have the 13th and 14th zodiac constellation, because truly it's part of our galactic connection to the Milky Way. So you can type in your date of birth and everything, and you'll be able to see exactly, if you hover over these parts, you'll be able to see your own Mercury, the line, the Stargate, your sun, the moon, etc., and actually see where exactly that your stars and the planets were in your date of birth. So I highly encourage you to just play around with this and start to see the different constellations and where they are and their orientation, because it really is bringing a two-dimensional learning into a three-dimensional way to see relationships between the stars. So as you scroll down, this is actually today's date and the calculations. And so you can just type all of this in, and you can actually input as well the offset of your date of birth as well. So if there is a particular country or place that isn't in, or a town that isn't in the calculator, you can automatically put in the offset from the meridian on the timeline. You have ability to save profiles and upload your profile in here as well. And you can also save multiple profiles in here, because there is a aspect I updated in here where you can do compatibility. So between you and your partner, between you and a friend, and you can start to see the interconnectedness between profiles. So this is your star map in 2D. So it's the same as the 3D, but now in 2D. And there's something on here that is very unique and different, is that this inside ring is the movement of the precession of the equinox, and that's what I call your star map. And then the outside ring is the Earth map. So there are actually two maps happening simultaneously. So there is an Earth map, which is the procession, and the star map on the inside, which is the precession. And so this has been the hardest thing to collaborate, because this is the difference between the Earth map is similar or akin to how a tropical system would work, but of course it's different. And the star map is akin to how the sidereal astrology would work, but of course this is different. So this finally unifies the Earth and the heavens into one map. And so you have both. And so instead of trying to get a tropical reading and trying to get a sidereal or a Vedic reading, this is all of it in one place. And that is the revolution of knowing that this is now in time with the seasons and the annual year, the procession moving forward through the zodiac, and the star map, which is the precession as we move backwards through the great year. So you can see here the Earth map. And what you might notice is that in the Earth map, your stargates may be very similar to some of the readings that you may have had before from other systems. And so this is the recalibration. And of course, you would have the different zodiac that is attuned to what is actually happening in the sky right now. So as you look through all of this, you'll see all of the quadrinity psychology, the light, integration, transformation, embodiment, all of the I Ching. You'll see the DNA, you'll see the amino acid, you'll see the star codon, you'll see the body part, and you'll see the connection to where that is in the spine. And of course, whenever we get all of this kind of information, it's like, well, what does this mean? Well, that's the reason why we do the courses, to go through each and every part of this to explain. And so, for example, the star codons course enabled us to discover what the star codon means, the amino acid and the DNA, and where it links to the spine. And then in aura, we're looking at which body part it's connected to and which auric field it's connected to. So you can look through all of this. And again, the star map is how the stars have actually moved. So the Earth map is your annual year, and the star map is how the stars have moved. The inner map is the 88 degrees from the Earth map. So 88 degrees prior to birth is the inner map. And so this is the course that we call Aura, and it explores all of the inner planets and how the aura is formed 88 degrees prior to your birth. And so the inner star map is just the inner version of the star map. So again, 88 degrees before you're born, but now aligned to the stars. So this now starts to bring us into this idea that truly we have way more connections to the stargates than we first thought. And again, this can be very overwhelming, and it can seem like, well, maybe I should just study the whole thing because I seem to have everything. And that's kind of where astrology leads you, because your stargates are your initial point of reference to find an avenue to concentrate on, to work with. And then as you grow, you start to realize that you are connected to all of it. And of course, that's the whole point of astrology, is that you learn how all of the stars and their stories and the stargates are really gifting you different aspects of the human journey and of your journey. So you'll see so many cool things in here. I list all of the 72 stargates and all of their energies, all of the I Ching and the trigrams. There's things like the primary octave, which is a whole other teaching. All of the magic stargates, which is kind of fun. You can start to see some mathematical correspondences. So for example, 43.2 is the stargate version of 432. And so there's some really cool things in there to see if your stargates are linked to mathematical connections. And so it's a really fun kind of treasure box of information in there that you can look at. I then kind of went a bit mad with this, but I love it so much, is I actually connected music to your entire chart. And so you can actually listen to the frequency of that stargate. And you can listen to it as a whole chord. You can play your own chart. You can listen to all 72 stargates. And this is a way to, through your audio senses, to just play the notes and you can just feel the frequency vibration of that stargate. And of course, it's all linked to the lost octave, being this idea that everything is linked to music. So it's the music of the stars, the music of the stargates. And so you can have lots of fun by linking how your sun and earth sound together, how your sun, earth, and moon, how they sound together. And so it's just another way of learning and feeling into the connections. We can go through all of this, but essentially just briefly that we have all of the amino acid codex, so you can read about the amino acids. We have the genetic lovers of the star codons. Again, you have the ability to align multiple charts. So you can actually do a family constellation here as well, which again, it's a huge library of information. But if you really want to dive deep into it and see some of the similar themes between you and another, or you and a set of people, and this could even work when it comes to people in a business, for example, that you can actually put 5 members of a team, put their charts into this, and there may be a reoccurring theme that you're all connected to. And so really the possibilities of this are truly endless. The asteroids at the moment, I have Dark Moon Lilith in this, and the asteroids are a whole another type of calculation it's all about how to integrate another calculator into this one. So that will be a future part of this, because there's so much in this already. But the asteroids, I hope as the evolution of this calculator happens, that maybe next year or 2028, I'll be doing a whole asteroids course and having all the asteroid degrees as well. But as you can probably guess from all of this, to work through these calculations alone is going to be a project. I also gave the calendar, so you can actually look up any date that we're in, and you'll see exactly which line, which stargate, which zodiac sign, and you'll be able to start to work with this almost as like a diary. So if you're ever wondering, what is today? Like, what are we in? What line? Where are we in this whole map? Then you can just simply go to the calendar and you can just click on this and be like, oh, wow, okay, so today it's about eternity. And what does that mean? And you can start to read through this and look through all of this. This part with the star law, I am so happy about, because this was a huge process, because not only was it converting the 36 deacons, I decided to convert all 88 star constellations into the star law. That means all of the northern and all of the southern hemisphere stars. And I calibrated it to the exact degrees. So the Egyptians had a good process of the deacons, that it would be 36. But of course, 36 is only a handful of the stars that are there. And most of them aren't southern hemisphere either. So in order to bring the hemispheres into alignment, I calibrated all 88 star constellations. And so here you'll actually see the main northern star law and the main southern star law, but also you'll see the stars that are all connected to it. Because as the stars are, they're not neat, one begins and one ends. So many overlap. And as they get closer to the pole stars, they really are pole stars for every single stargate. So again, you can look on that 3D map and you'll start to see the different star constellations. But on here, in terms of star law, you can actually see the main northern star law and the main southern star law for every single stargate in here. Some things that I put in here that I'll be further teaching at a later point, which will be all about the 16 ways. So how each of the stargates, the mental way in which to connect to them, and also the way to experience them. So you can kind of think about this as the mental body and the emotional body. And so if you're stuck on wondering how to experience this stargate, well, this is all about tuning into the subconscious mind. And this is about how to feel through the body. And so, again, this is a whole nother pattern and project that we'll be exploring on how to bring this more into a direct experience of you. This is really just the map and the bare bones of what these things mean. And so the same thing goes with the channels, that we have different hormones that are connected to this. We have different channels such as embodiment, transformation, and light and integration. This is all connected to the different hormones and the different effects that it has in our body. I then calibrated a new idea of the houses, where if you're used to astrology and not so much the I Ching and stargates, then you can look through the actual astrology of all of this and start to see the houses. But of course, even the houses are now redefined because there are 14 houses and they're also not equal degrees. So this is a way in which to see your planets in alignment with the houses. And then if you really want to be as geeky as possible and as detailed as possible, you have every single aspect here, like oppositions, sextiles, trines. You have the whole process in here. So if you're used to astrology, you can be in this and really enjoy all of this side of this program. Again, you have all of the degrees as well. And so the reason why really the I Ching is such a beautiful connection to this is because it kind of simplifies all of the houses and degrees into 72 stargates. And that's really where the beauty, when I first saw this idea of connecting the I Ching to astrology, I really enjoyed it, because when we're just speaking about every single degree and every possible way in which they're connected, there's so much data that we really don't even know where to start. Whereas the 72 stargates really breaks the whole entire cosmos down into the 72 fractals. And so that's really what I would suggest to work with. But of course, if you're coming from the astrology point of view, maybe you're already so familiar with the other type of language. And then the final part of this, again, is another whole subject, which is astrocartography, which is a really cool and up-and-coming idea of how the planets are and all of the star map is overlaid onto the Earth. And by doing this, there are certain places on the Earth that are connected to your particular birth chart. And so you can start to see at the bottom here, you'll see the different countries that are linked to the different aspects of each planet. So you can just simply click here and you'll see all of the planets, and you'll be able to see your alignments to different parts of the world. And so I kind of love this because it gives us an ability that we may be drawn to different places on the Earth, and we may experience different challenges in different places on the Earth. And so this is another way to navigate which countries and places are connected to us. So needless to say, I wanted to build a program that is going to last, that is going to be a map. And this, if we see it as for us to be scholars of this, for us that it's a lifetime's work, not in terms of a lifetime to find the answers, but a lifetime to enjoy, to have a subject to enjoy for the rest of our lives. And it's not that we need this, it's not that we need to have any of this, it's just a beautiful subject to study. if there was a subject at school that they could have said, you could study this for the rest of your life, then I would choose the universe, because it has everything you could ever want, from the DNA to the stars to the planets to the earth maps to the neuro alignments in our body and brain, to the music of the spheres, and to the mystical, and to the ancient star lore. And so I wanted to put all of this in here, that we have references. And so, as I say, just look at this, take this one step at a time, feel into it, and just know that this is a journey that we're all on. These are new maps. These calibrations have never been done before. And so the way in even which we see things like Aries and Pisces and Taurus, all of this is being redefined, because things have moved. The book of changes has changed. We have 72 hexagrams, DNA, consciousness. The age of Pisces and Aquarius is now in our flow. And so what I would say with this is to approach this just with an open mind of learning again. And everything that we've done up until this point, all of the zodiac signs that we've been and that we've identified with, they've all helped us learn. And when we come into a new system, if we try to sort of hang on to the old, then we find it much more difficult. If I was to show a child that wanted to learn about astrology, if I wanted to show them this map, they would just come into it with fresh eyes and openness. And so that's the way that I would say to walk into all of this, just to enjoy learning all of this again and see all of these shifts. And you'll probably find, like any new system, new update, that actually you probably can learn this pretty quickly and things feel very familiar. And once you find a new flow, you're like, wow, I can see why now this update was so needed. So it's a miraculous thing, I have to say. It's really, truly, I looked at this when it started to create itself, and all of that work of the last 3-4 months, when I downloaded the mirror codes and the bees came forward, and then it was, yeah, you need to recalibrate the whole of astrology. And I was like, this is just so overwhelming at times. And just like, I don't even know if I have the ability and the skills to even do such a task. And the bees were just there to say, you know, just do it, you can do it. And I just had to tap into every resource in my being. And then when it came to being able to shift that code of the universe into this, somehow it seemed to work so effortlessly and easily. And I kind of see that as a bit of a metaphor, that the things that we're learning in the mirror codes, they're cross-pollination skills. And so you may not know that the things that you're learning, and it may just be about the zodiac and how all of this is the yin and the yang and the broken lines and all of this stuff. It may feel like it's a subject by itself, but actually it's transferring its wisdom and its knowledge into your life, so that then when you come to create something, you're able to create it with an architecture, with an inner standing. And so this is what's so beautiful about creating an architecture and a library to reference, and then we get to dance and play within that structure. And that's the perfect balance of the masculine and the feminine, is to set up the playground, know it's safe, and have all of the toys in the toolbox and the sandbox, and then you invite people to come in and play. And so this is really the beauty of where the Lost Octave is going and where these courses are going. And as I say, I'll be inviting everybody into the next projects, because there are interactive maps and new processes and new experiences, so that we can bring the stars really into an interactive direct experience for our lives. And so that's really you're getting a sort of an insight into my inner world. When you see this map, this is kind of like how it seems in my reality, how I bend and morph and look through and spin and start to see how everything is connected as something alive. Because truly, when we go outside and we look at the stars, it truly is a special experience every time we do that.